Welcome in to the Unblocked Podcast Network. It is Unblocked Friday here. I'm Keith with Brian, Coach, and our very special guest, Jay Flannelly. So, everyone say hello.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
All right. Welcome, Jay.
Absolutely. So, we're going to get into all the good football talk later, but we're really privileged to have Jay with us today, and we want to get chatting with him right away. So, I'm going to toss it over to Brian. And, Brian, why don't you get this going?
I read the great book by John U. Bacon about the role somebody called the Beef had in Jim Harbaugh coming back to Ann Arbor. And as a kid, obviously, I was a big fan of Michigan, and it never really left me. Being a kid from Ohio, I'd come home with a black eye sometimes, and Dad would just say, Ohio State, and I'd just nod my head. But, the other guy always looked worse, Jay, so you don't appreciate that. But whenever I finally was able to take my family up, Maddie and my ex-wife up to Ann Arbor, I said, I've got to meet Jay. And unfortunately, that day I was wearing a Baltimore Ravens sweatshirt. And Jay came out, and he told me not to order food and walked away. And I looked at my ex-wife, and I was like, you think he's serious? And she said, I'm not ordering anything. But Jay welcomed my daughter, Maddie. She was in a number 4 jersey that I shared on Facebook. I'll share it on Twitter later. And did 2 photos with Maddie. And Maddie was just over the moon because she had met somebody that was so close to Tom Brady. She had no idea your role in the Jim Harbaugh bringing him back. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Jay?
You mean the Coach Harbaugh thing?
Yeah.
So basically, I live and work in town. I worked for the team in the 90s for Coach Moeller and Coach Carr from May of 93 to August of 99. And I moved back in 02. And, when Coach Carr was here, I was still around, helped him out a little bit. Always been around the program. And after the transition from when Coach Carr retiring, the program obviously went the wrong way. I didn't know Coach Rodriguez really well. He inherited difficult circumstances. A lot of our players graduated. He didn't have a lot of support, had people undermining him. Administration was kind of frilly and cheap. Then Coach Hoke came in, who I know very well, love the man. I think he's great. And he was the D-line coach when I was here for a lot of the years, and he's a great guy. But his teams kind of bottomed out and were going the other way, and the whole city and university was suffering. So I was contacted by a couple people to try to help to get the next coach. And when this all started, my target was Les Miles. And he was, I believe he was at LSU at the time. And he had really good teams, and he was competing for a national championship. And I kept hearing, hey, Harbaugh might want to leave and come. And I got contacted by Todd Anson and a couple other people, John Gindia, this is all in the book. And we started organizing and getting things together. And I mentioned to John and Todd, hey, we should do something like the Captain's Council. Like me calling Jim Harbaugh isn't going to do a lot. He doesn't know who the hell I am, and most of you don't anyways, but that's irrelevant. But we have to have big, high-level people call him and let him know that he's wanted back in value because he's having a tough time with the 49ers. He and Jed York weren't getting along. It was a bad situation. So we started to have captains calling, John Jansen, Jared Irons, guys like that. Those are the guys I was with. Anthony Carter calling them, different people. Jamie Morris, Jumbo Elliott, guys like that. And Todd Anson and Gindia said to me, hey, we need a closer. And I go, I think I'm going to have Tommy call him. Not Tom Brady. And a couple things happened. One weekend I was going to have him do it, and the Patriots lost, so that was out. Won the next week in San Diego, big game, national TV. And I messaged Tom after the game, like I do all the time. And I said, Tommy, hey, could you do me a favor? We're trying to call Jim Harbaugh to get him to come here. Bring him back. And literally 30 seconds later, Tommy messages me back, Beef, Coach Harbaugh is exactly what we need. So like 3 days later, I'm reading, I think it was in the newspaper, that Tommy called and talked to Harbaugh for 2 hours. And he messaged me later and he said, we got him. He's coming. And I thought, he's full of, it's Tom. I tell people this all the time. What's it like being friends with Tom Brady and how he is? Well, this is all you need to know about Tom Brady. And this is how he does so many incredible, amazing things he does. He believes if Tom was the captain of the Titanic wouldn't have sunk. That's just the way he is. And so a lot of things happen, trending up, and we end up getting Coach Harbaugh, and then John U. Bacon, who, of course, grew up with the Harbaughs, writes the book. And I've been on a whirlwind tour since then, and right around the same time Deflategate happened, and I was heavily involved in that. So I'm known as the Tom guy, which is pretty cool because Tom's awesome and he's a dear friend of mine. I love him like a brother. But a lot of things happening at once kind of made me a guy to know type of thing.
And lastly, before I turn it over to Coach, I'm so happy to call you a friend, and there's so many reasons why. You're one of the few people that I say I have to see whenever I come to Ann Arbor.
Get out more often, Brian.
No matter what I have to do.
Often, it's okay.
Well, two things that I'm going to surprise you with is your charity. Let's talk about Chad Tuff a little bit.
You're going to try to make me cry now? Yeah, so
No.
My first roommate in Michigan was Jason Carr, Lloyd Carr's son. He was a quarterback, and the whole Tom Brady thing, that's how I became so tight with Tom in 95, because Tommy came here. 8-up, lost, California kid, 7th-string quarterback, literally came to Ann Arbor from San Francisco, San Mateo area with no winter coat. Big John Falk gave him a U of M coat, which is a great story. And that's how I became friends with Tommy. But Jason and I were always close. He married Tammy, one of his college girlfriends, and they had 3 boys. And Chad was the youngest, and he was having problems at home, falling down. And Tammy took him to the hospital, and they did a bunch of tests, and they found out he had a very serious brain tumor condition known as DIPG. At the time, the thing that was the most disheartening about this, it wasn't really a high-profile cancer. So how usually cancers and diseases work, the more people get them, the more research dollars they get, because for obvious reasons, hey, lung cancer, that's been around because of smoking and so forth, so they get hundreds of millions of dollars towards it. While DIPG didn't have a face or a name behind it. And the Carrs, through their power of their family name and Michigan football and U of M and all the other University Hospital and everything, we got involved. Unfortunately, we couldn't save Chad. He died, unfortunately, pretty quick. He didn't see his 5th birthday. And I created the Chad Tuff Foundation that Tammy and Jason run with a lot of help from some other people. And we do fundraising every year for that. So that's a cool thing. Anything you can do, I think it's just Chad Tuff. Just Google it. It's everywhere. And we just did a fundraiser, had the race, which Joe Marinaro, my high school teammate and best buddy, he's Chad's godfather. He ran in the race. He runs almost every year. He was the captain of Lloyd's first team in 95. My personal bodyguard, I basically wouldn't be alive without Joe. He got me through my senior year at high school. And is a huge reason why I got to Michigan. And he's also a huge reason Tom Brady stayed here, because Tom was homesick with 2 other guys from the 97 team. And Joe worked with those guys and kept them here. And I kind of took over when Joe left. I had no idea why Joe was calling me to go see Tom and the other guys, but I did it a couple times, and Joe was keeping those guys here, and he always keeps me in line. He's a yin and a yang. He never talks. I never shut up.
That's something, Jay, that we talk about. Yeah. Obviously, Mike Godfrey's Team Focus is a big reason why we're even here. I should probably hide Brian Hartline from you, but that's
Coach
John
Hartline's
Harbaugh at the bottom,
really
and we lost Board of Education.
He's a good football coach. I mean, Woody Hayes is a good coach.
We lost Greg Krantz over the summer, and it's going to be a big loss for Team Focus and Mike Godfrey's organization. But lastly, and if you want to talk about this, you can, or else I can talk about it. Larry the Bear Proud.
Okay. Larry has spina bifida.
Okay.
He's 20 years
Larry
old.
has spina bifida. He's 20 years old. And I think he has had, last I read, it's an amazing number of surgeries. And I was looking it up, and I don't have it, but you're going to talk about somebody that's
figures. He's probably
inspiring.
around 120.
Go follow Larry Prout.
Yeah. So, and that's what we're about.
Yeah.
Is faith, family, fellowship.
And that's what we're about is faith, family, fellowship. I'm happy to call you a friend, Jay. And I texted you about doing this show, and within 30 minutes, you were like, "How can I help?" And that's what I appreciate about your friendship.
Hey,
but
Brian,
I'm going to turn it over to
Coach
while I try and fix this
You're Mike
echo.
Godfrey's guy. You're his son, and you know what your dad. You know what your dad's claim to fame is with me, right?
Nephew.
He's my second. I mean, sorry, your uncle.
Mike's
See,
my uncle.
I just broke news on the air. He's not your dad. He's your uncle. There you go. I'm here to see Coach is excited. But here's the thing. I hope Mike sees this because he's my second favorite Moorhead State football player of all time. Guess who number one is?
Behind Phil Sims?
The great Phil Sims. Get it right. 22 for 25 in the Super Bowl. I love Phil Sims.
The great Phil Sims actually trashed every record Mike had except for 7 interceptions in a game. And I'll get into that story later when Mike was coaching Alex Van Pelt at Pittsburgh. He said, "Coach, I don't have it." And Mike said, "You're staying in. You got a chance to break my record."
That's pretty funny.
7 interceptions. So go ahead, Coach.
All right, very good and great stuff there, guys. You know, Jay, we've got a common friend who just passed away, and Buddy Teeman. And I'll get into my stuff about Buddy in a minute. Tell me about your relationship with Buddy and where how that started.
I grew up in Andover, Mass. Went to Andover High School, and Dick Collins is our legendary Hall of Fame coach, one of the greatest high school coaches in America. He's a Dartmouth guy. He played against this guy you might have heard of named Joe Paterno.
Okay.
He might have intercepted Joe Paterno a couple of times during the game once.
Right.
They're urban legends. So Buddy was the coach of Dartmouth when I was in high school. And I used to go to his camps, and a bunch of our players were recruited by him. And he was a big deal. Now, he left and went to Illinois and Florida and then Tulane. You probably know him from Tulane.
Right.
Just a great guy. Whoever the good guy coach in the sport is, like Mac Brown's a really good guy. Mm-hmm. Coach Carr was a great guy. Just the good guy coach. Dick Vermeil. You know, that's what Buddy Teemans was. But the bigger thing he did with all this talk about player safety, he worked with some of the computer nerds at Dartmouth, and he developed contactless practices where they never tackled each other. They had computer dummies, like crash test dummies that they did. And he invented that. And, unfortunately, I kept tabs on Coach, and we talked a lot. He had a really bad car accident. He was riding a bike, I believe. He got hit by a car down in Florida. They moved him up to Boston. I think he was at Spalding.
Exactly.
It's the military rehab hospital where a lot of the people from the Boston Marathon attack went. Those idiots tried to blow up the Boston Marathon on Patriots Day about 10 years ago. And Coach, he just succumbed to his injuries. He lost his leg. I had no idea how sick he was. But the fact that he wasn't coaching in the Ivy League season, because a lot of these Ivy League coaches stay there forever. And he was big. I think he won like 7 championships at Dartmouth. He was a great player there. He's a great quarterback. Just a great guy. Huge loss for football. And coincidentally, Brian, he was the head coach of Stanford before Jim, Coach Harbaugh. So just a great guy. He's in this industry to have very few people say any bad things about you. That's a huge deal. Just a really, really good man. A huge loss for the Ivy League, and New England football. Just a great guy. I mean, it's a very sad day.
Well, I'll throw my buddy Teeman's stories in there real quick. Buddy was the head coach at Tulane and was doing a speed camp, a clinic and speed camp in Orange Beach, Gulf Shores area. Some boosters had brought him down. He had advertised it and all that. And it's summer of like 96.
He went to Florida with Ron
and maybe even 98, right along in there. And it's before, right? He did that after he got fired at Tulane. And so I go to the clinic and get there, and I'm the only coach that showed up, and one kid, a middle school kid, shows up. That's it. That's all that's there. So I figure, this guy's going to cancel this and go to the house. No, that guy clinicked me and speed worked that kid for 4 hours.
There's a million stories like that.
As if there were hundreds of us there. And so me and him, so I helped him run the drills and all that with the kid, and we just spent all this time together. So he finishes up and says, we've got a football camp going on over in Hammond, Louisiana, called the Manning Academy, that just finished its first year. And if we get our numbers up higher, would you be interested in coaching it? Because he found out that I've been a college quarterback and coached quarterbacks my whole life, and I said absolutely. And then back, I don't know, 6 weeks later, I get a phone call out of nowhere. Everybody says, hey, our numbers have gotten so big, we need you. Can you be here tomorrow? Yes, sir. And I go that next day. I worked the Manning Academy for 10 years. Got to see Buddy every year, spend time with him. He actually 1 year let me bring both of my boys and let them stay in the dorm with me and hang out with me. I'm going to show you this picture real quick.
Here's my story.
Some of those guys.
Story. Okay, so here, Coach, here's my story.
That's Fred Riley, his boys, and Archie Manning and his.
I was the recruiting host for Peyton when he came to Michigan. I was one of them. Apparently, I didn't do a very good job, but so.
Fantastic. Buddy then went to Florida, and during that time to be the offensive coordinator, allowed me to come stay. He and his wife spent 3 days at their house when I went to learn what Florida was doing, how Spurrier did things. Was so wonderful. I mean, just
all New England guys can coach. All New England
Buddy
guys
could operate on 4 hours sleep, and he thought anybody that slept more than 4 hours, anybody that slept more than 4 hours is lazy.
And that's what Ron Zook used to call you, weak if you slept more than 4 hours. And Ron Zook's a Mike Gottfried guy. That's where he got his start at Youngstown State as a player.
But Buddy was
he's 66 years old.
Buddy was
he started so young, Coach. That was the thing. He started
person,
so young,
as you said. I mean, And well, again, I don't know how old he was when he was head coach at Stanford, but he had to be very, very young.
I think he was like 45 when he was the coach at Stanford.
He was so smart, so sharp, so analytical. I mean, that's probably right. But just great. I want to tell you one story about him and Spurrier. He got to go in and coach in the bowl game with Spurrier that year, but he really did. He was just he'd just been hired to become the offensive coordinator under Spurrier.
Team?
We know who the coordinator was at Florida. It was Spurrier.
Okay.
And so he's on the headphones in the bowl game. That I don't know. And but he's on the phones, and Coach Spurrier calls a play. And Buddy, being analytical, by the book, everything has got to be just so. Starts yelling at the guys running. That play's not on the sheet. That play's not on the sheet. What does he just call? And the guy next to him said, "Just take a deep breath and watch this." And touchdown Gators. I mean, he said Spurrier sees things that none of the rest of us see. And every now and then he's going to go off script. Just roll with it. You got to be a little less puckered here than maybe you normally are. And so he said it was a great learning experience for him to lighten up a little bit. Everything ain't got to be quite so to be successful. There's just different ways to skin the cat. So he was still learning even at that time. He's a great guy. Great guy.
Coach, were you done? Do you want to flip it to Keith?
I will say I knew when I was a running back coach at Miami of Ohio under Tim Rose his last year. And when Shimmy was an equipment manager.
Yeah.
On that team. Shimmy ain't gonna remember me. I wasn't there for like 4 months, but yeah, I still remember his family coming in and helping him unload and
worked at the Cradle Coaches
before the season started. But I wasn't there very long. I worked at the Cradle
You know
of
the
Coaches.
Ara
Got to meet Ara
Parsegian stat?
Parsegian. Got to meet Weave
Ara
Eubank. I
Parsegian
spoke at the
stat.
Oxford Redskin
Never
Club,
had a
and Weave
punt
Eubank
blocked.
sat on the.
Never had a team have his team's never had a punt blocked.
Not the one. That's pretty good. You know,
Yes.
Coach Parsegian found out I was from Alabama and sits down with me and starts talking to me about Alabama Notre Dame games. I mean, well, I'm in heaven. I mean, you know, I'm sitting there listening to Alabama Notre Dame games from the guy that coached in them. And again, I'm sorry, but I grew up a New York Jet fan because of Joe Namath, Richard Todd.
Think about that.
And so I got to
The
visit
team
with
that
Weave
won the Super Bowl
Eubank.
for the Jets. You know,
How
like
cool
their
is
D-line
that?
coach was?
And just a
Buddy Ryan.
no, I was 8 years old. Buddy Ryan, there you go.
Know the name.
Well, Miami was, and my funny story about Miami. I don't know if you knew Tim Rose. Tim was a different cat. Rode a motorcycle to work every day with no helmet on. Big hog. We get fired, and Tim calls me in and says, Freddie, and he always called me Freddie. I don't know why. Freddie, I'm supposed to speak at the Dayton, Ohio club tonight, and my blankety blank ain't going. I've been fired. I ain't going up there and talking to them people. I need you to go for me. Take the school car. They're going to write you a check for like $500. I don't give a crap what you say. Just go up there and get this handled for me. Yes, sir. I get in my car, get in the school car, drive to Dayton, Ohio, walk in there. They're expecting Tim Rose. It's me. I'll walk up and say, Coach Rose has been fired. He sent me up here. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. I'll be the first assistant coach fired when the new staff comes in. I'm from whatever. What do you want to know? And I, we told they wanted to talk Alabama stuff and Bear Bryant stuff. So I told stories about Alabama for 15 or 20 minutes with the Dayton Redskin club,
the best coach
got in
ever.
the car and drove home. So that wrapped up my Miami career.
Sure.
In his time, Nick Saban probably is at this time. It's hard to compare to me.
Different offenses he ran.
It really is. In his time, Coach Bryant, especially going through, obviously going to Texas and putting in the wishbone in the middle of the summer and not letting anybody know about it.
The whole Sam Ben
bringing in the
African
American player to the University of Alabama, that transition doesn't happen.
That's
right.
Isn't that crazy?
Exactly. Sam Cunningham did more for racial reconciliation in Alabama than anybody that's ever lived.
So that's what's the great thing about sports, though, is the people.
Well, that was the thing that Bear knew.
How, as a country, we're so divided.
Racism is
sports bring people
losing
together.
is worse than racism to these people. So they would rather win with black players than lose with white players. So if you show them you're going to lose to a team that has mixed teams, you're going to win.
No question. Sure. And sad to say, at that time, as long as it was not too many, you got to have, it's
like
an
NBA team. Everybody's going to have a couple white guys on it,
Just enough to, go, and then you go to, then you go undefeated. Yeah. Then you go. That's right. Then you go to the national or the Orange Bowl and get mauled by Nebraska and realize maybe you ain't got quite enough, and also you ain't lifting weights as good as those people are lifting weights. We got to do something. And that game brought weightlifting into the state of Alabama.
The Boyd Epley guy for Tom
starting
Osborne
to lift weights and put weights. It was Nebraska beating Alabama. Alabama coming back from out there visiting and going. Sorry. Boyd Epley.
Robbie Hall, my man Keith.
So yeah.
I'm here. All right.
Oh, I don't know about that, though. I think the 49ers
Jay, question
screwed
for
up,
you.
That,
you look at
whatever.
You got Harbaugh to Michigan. Yep. Now, trust me, there's nothing more you were part of that nonetheless, and Brian brought up a point with the Detroit Lions, and Coach and I even discussed this back, is when you get that right coach in the room. And one thing that reminded me of this is when you were talking to Tom, and he said, Jim Harbaugh is the man we need at Michigan. Like, I know Michigan needed a couple years to get
Big
back
name
to where
brands,
they are.
like the NBA with the Celtics and
life
the Lakers.
is better, I always say,
Yeah.
when you've got Notre Dame, Alabama, Texas, Michigan. You got these big boys all playing good football. Exactly. And, it took Michigan a little while to get there, but you look at what's happened in Detroit with the Lions recently, where you just get the right personality in that room. And how much of an effect did Harbaugh have on that? Even though it took him a couple of years, and, he still kind of seems like he's feeling around the NFL little by little, but, how the players, the staff, the university, it just seems they all welcomed him back and said, you just take care of this,
is completely different
and we'll get back.
than the NFL game. And you just look at the quarterbacks who are great in college and struggling in the NFL. Justin Fields with your Blackhawks Bears. So I think Coach had to go with an adjustment period.
I know that.
A lot of change with his staff. Had some good teams, and the COVID year happened. And then I think he really made some changes. The 20 season was important for us, even though we had a bad year. But Cade McNamara kind of came in and changed the team. And Aiden Hutchinson was starting to take off, and he got hurt. And then when COVID happened, you had guys getting 5th and 6th years. We built the foundation with our offensive line. I mean, we have, Zach Zenter and Trevor Keegan have started together for 3 years. We've had 3 different centers. Cornelius Johnson and Roman Wilson have played a lot. Mike Sanistrel's changed sides of ball. Mike Barrett's played 6 years. A lot of different guys. But then you add in NIL and the transfer portal. Then Jim does the big thing finally. We get an elite talent, big 5-star QB in J.J. McCarthy, who more importantly is a 5-star personality, which you need. I think it's a big deal. You need to have the man, the big-time personality coming in, because he's great with kids. He's great with the fans. He's a big person. Cade was the guy who got you there to the spot to set you up to get J.J. McCarthy. Nothing ever happens fast. Rome wasn't built in a day. Rome was destroyed in a day. It wasn't built in a day. And you have to develop. Like, think about, you mentioned Alabama, Coach. They went from Greg McElroy and those type of guys to Tua, to Mac Jones, to Jalen Hurts. They went to more offensively talented skill guys than the game manager type, Phil Simms type guys, because they were getting beat by Trevor Lawrence and those type of guys. So Jim had to learn that. And we ran into that great Georgia team with the 37 NFL players and all the Jordan Davis and friends. So I think that was a foundational change, but I think Jim has adapted and changed his style, and he hasn't been afraid to do that. You would think maybe Cade McNamara was Alex Smith, and Colin Kaepernick might be JJ, or the other one, Alex Smith and Pat Mahomes. So you got to go to a different level. It's not that Cade's not really good; he is. Just that JJ is a special talent. He can do things that Cade can't do. Now,
and Michigan fans picking him apart is wrong.
You're talking about JJ or Cade or
Cade.
And
that's
Michigan fans picking him apart is wrong.
Idiots
on so many levels.
Booed Tom Brady out of the stadium during the Syracuse game in 1998.
Cade.
First of all, here's a rule: don't boo
Michigan
college
fans.
Okay, college players and they're getting paid now. Guys, idiots! They were always getting paid. They had college scholarships. Every one of these guys thinks that because they're good at Madden or they're good in gym class, they can do what JJ did and Cade did and Tom Brady did and Drew Henson. You can't. Listen, if you could, I'd still be doing it. It's very hard what they do. Cade McNamara got you to the Final Four in college football. Okay? I never thought he was going to play. Because remember, it's Dylan McCaffrey, Joe Milton, JJ was coming. He was a great player. He's gonna do great things with Iowa. They had a rough patch last weekend, but they'll come back. Cade's a great kid, great leader, great quarterback. Doesn't change. It's just that JJ is a better fit for what we're currently doing and trying to do. And it's the reality of the world. You know, Joe Montana got traded. Tom Brady had to leave. You know, the John Elways, Jim Kellys, and Dan Marinos don't happen very often.
What? Okay, Jay, I think one thing that Keith wanted to ask too about was the Lions culture right now.
Oh, listen. No, two words. Dan Campbell.
Okay, Jay, I think
Dan
one thing
Campbell.
that Keith
Dan
wanted to
Campbell,
ask too about was the Lions
one of
culture.
the things, the funny thing with the Ryan
right
Day Notre Dame game the other night where he lost his mind after the game and went on his rant, that was embarrassing because that's not how Ryan Day is. If Dan Campbell does that, that's Dan Campbell. This guy talked about eating people's kneecaps on his first press conference, and that, but that's how he is.
Yeah.
That's how he is. So when Dan talks it and sells it, and they built the team the right way, inside out. They got D linemen, they got offensive linemen, they're adding parts. They just hit in their last draft. Their first 4 guys they took in the first 2 rounds are all really good contributing players. They lucked out. You always need luck in these drafts when you have a team. Whenever you have a great team, somebody makes a mistake, it falls in your lap. Hello, Aiden Hutchinson. And a whole bunch of other moves. Amar St. Brown, they got him like the 4th round. He's like a top 20 wide receiver. Laporta was in the 2nd round. A lot of other things. They upgraded the running back position with David Montgomery, who's just a better player than Jamal Williams. You know, they have 3 first-round picks in the O-line. And they're both tackles and the center. So, and they have players everywhere. I mean, Jacobs last night with the 2 interceptions. They signed him off the street like 2 years ago. And it's Dan. And it's also the owner. The owner, Sheila, is great. She's around the team all the time. Sheila Hemp, the owner. Yeah. And
it's with FedEx or
Brad, the general manager, is incredible. He's done a great job. Remember, people laughed at them when they took on Jared Goff. Jared Goff's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL now.
He still can make every throw at his age. It's amazing.
I'll tell you this right now. I might get some death threats and people aggravate about this. He's better than Matthew Stafford.
He still can make every throw at his age.
I would rather have Jared Goff at this point than Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford is too reckless with the ball. I don't like guys that are turnover machines. I don't want Betty Crocker playing quarterback.
Right now, absolutely.
Hey, you want to see that I'm actually paying attention and tie a few things together here? So you talk about culture, coaches being in the right spot, COVID years, all the things that go with it. Rich Rod is at Jacksonville State. They're 5-0 now. He's got a 7th-year quarterback playing for him.
Oh wow!
And life is good.
That's like the Harris
and
kid.
This 7-year quarterback has been at JSU the whole time.
Yeah.
He got his 4, he got his red shirt, he got his COVID, and he got an injury hardship.
Offense. So there was a lot of stuff that went on here that people shouldn't be proud about in Michigan. Right. He's a good coach.
Exactly. So life's good in Jacksonville, Alabama for Rich Rod.
How much time do we have? I got to be ready for Christmas. No.
Yes.
And lastly, Sean Griffin wanted to know about the Patriots.
Try to be
Can
nice.
you break down them?
It was all him. Does that? It was all him. This. You know, Bill Belichick is a really, really good defensive coach. Okay, he might be a good head coach.
Oh, you're right.
He's
good
not
job.
Andy Reid,
That's
Bill
what we're going to call
Parcells,
this.
Tom Landry, Chuck Noll, Bill Walsh, Don Shula, any of these guys. You know why he's where he is? Well, for two people really, Lawrence Taylor and Tom Brady, who are like 2 of the 5 best players in the history of the league. Tom leaves. Bill's lack of personnel in finding skilled players, because remember, all these years when these young skilled players would come and were bad, it was Tom's fault. But so Tom's gone. They have no young skill players, and when they do, it's N'Keal Harry. But literally, the Patriots had a pick in a draft that would literally, you could fall out of a plane and find wide receivers. And the Patriots draft a guy who can't play at all. Instead of Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, Deontay Johnson, there's a million guys. If they drafted any of these guys instead of instead of N'Keal Harry, Tom probably stays with the Patriots. They make all these mistakes. They do all these things. They're drafting punters and kickers. They don't have offensive linemen. Mac Jones is getting killed. Mac Jones needs help because he's not overly physically talented. Hey, let me let you know a secret. If Tua didn't have an offensive line, he'd look bad too. There's very few players in the league that can survive without an offensive line. There's like Pat Mahomes, Joe Burrow's done it, Josh Allen's running around for his life, but almost every quarterback needs significant help. One of the reasons why Tommy worked in Tampa was they had a good offensive line and they added to it and they drafted Wirfs. And then obviously Mike Evans and Godwin. But notice how they built the O-line, and then the skill guys followed. Leonard Fournette, Rob Gronkowski, Antonio Brown before he lost his mind. Then we have the Jets, who let's bring in 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers. Sorry about the police cars going by. They're not coming to arrest me because I'm saying bad things about the Patriots. Yes. So Kraft sent them to get me. So the Jets, they signed the skill guy.
That came in at very perfect
Randall
timing.
Cobb, and let's put out geriatric Dwayne Brown at left tackle, and my man Becton, who is, his training day is McDonald's, Wendy's, and Burger King at right tackle. And of course, Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. And now we've got the comedy show of Zach Wilson playing quarterback. I haven't seen any of you guys play football, but I'm pretty sure the four of us in this picture could show up Sunday night at the old Meadowlands, the new New York Stadium for the Giants and Jets, and do a better job than Zach Wilson did. He's so bad, Robert Saleh might grow his hair back. That's how bad he is. Literally, they're playing the Chiefs Sunday night on national television. Steve Spagnuolo, rumors he's running around the Chiefs facility nude. He's so excited he doesn't know what to do about this game this week. It's like bad organizations, bad culture, chasing things, chasing stars. My good friend, the great writer Ian O'Connor, said it best. The last time the Jets were in the Super Bowl, we hadn't landed on the moon yet. But to go back to the Patriots, it's personnel and players. It's almost always Jimmys and Joes or X's and O's. You can make good players great with Jimmys and Joes. You can't make bad players good with X's and O's. You can have players. And the Patriots don't have enough good players. It's Belichick's fault. He runs the Patriots. They're drafting kickers and punters when they don't have offensive linemen and tight ends. They're overpaying wide receivers. They foolishly drafted another quarterback in the fourth round who can barely play when they have Mac Jones. Instead of giving Mac Jones some help, they drafted a guy to piss him off. It's not. They're about a 500 team because they do have good assistant coaches in Bill O'Brien, Gerard Mayo, Troy Brown. Bill O'Brien's a really good coach, but they don't have any players.
Jay,
what?
You've just done your one thing, your two thing, and we can say Jets.
Jets, Jets.
We're going to, in the interest of time, we're
Jay,
rolling back.
You've just done your one thing, your two thing, and we can say Jets. I tackled them